Hello, and welcome to the Modern Criminal Justice Reform Podcast. It is Friday the 13th, and today we're going to be talking about juvenile justice system and how it relates to ACEs. My name is Whitney Smith, and I am a MPH student with the concentration in environmental health. My main focus is in Appalachia with environmental factors relating to specifically cancer, but juvenile justice reform is also very important to me. And with me today, I have Brendan and Madeline.
Hi everyone, my name is Madeline Kaler. I am a second year Master of Health Administration student. I have personal ties to the criminal justice field as my best friend serves as a correctional officer in a downtown Minneapolis prison. And through her stories and her input on the first line scenes of criminal justice, I really feel passionately about reform and kind of changing the way society views criminal justice.
And my name is Brendan Matthews, and I am a second year Master of Public Health student here at UK. I do research on racial and ethnic health disparities, so I'm very passionate about the juvenile justice system and how that relates to ACEs, because we know that there are a lot of racial health disparities that exist within our criminal and juvenile justice systems, and the way that that impacts health outcomes later in life also reveals a lot of health disparities that we need to address as a society.
All right, so I guess the first thing we probably need to discuss on this topic is what is an ACE, an adverse childhood event.
So an ACE is an adverse childhood event, and the CDC defines it as a potentially traumatic event that occurs during childhood, which is defined by 0 to 17 years. And this event can be experiencing violence, abuse, or neglect, witnessing violence in the home, and having a family member attempt or die by suicide.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of research that has been conducted with ACEs and their impacts on health. So we know that the experience of an ACE early in childhood, so really between 0 and 17 years old, has been correlated to experiencing risky health behaviors later in life, chronic health conditions such as cardiovascular disease, cancer, diabetes. There is the trajectory for a low life potential, which really means that there's higher likelihood of dropping out of school, not being able to retain a job. There's also higher likelihood for involvement with both the juvenile and criminal justice systems. And then ultimately, there's also the potential for early death, which is something that we really need to focus on. And we know that ACEs are more prevalent among special populations, such as children that have one or more parent that is an alcoholic, children that have parents that are involved with the criminal justice system, children that have parents that are abusive towards either themselves or their partner. And then we know as well that juveniles that go on to interact with the criminal justice systems often have an ACE score of 3 or more. So that means that they've experienced at least 3 ACEs in their childhood. So we know that the experience of those ACEs is pretty directly correlated with later involvement in the criminal justice system and the juvenile justice system.
So speaking of the juvenile justice system, what is the current system like?
So the current juvenile justice system has strayed from its original purpose. And the whole goal of this, it was actually established in 1925, and the whole purpose of having a juvenile system was to divert youthful offenders from destructive punishments of the criminal courts and to encourage rehabilitation instead of trying them and treating them as an adult. And the whole purpose of this program was really to focus on rehabilitation, second chances, and overall just education and kind of putting an emphasis on the right versus the wrong. Now, in our society today, we've seen that more and more, there's been an influx of youth and adolescents being tried as adults. And it's really straying from its original purpose. And that's why we're passionate about this, because we can see research that goes to show that when you're pouring more preventive measures and more education into this kind of system, you'll see more positive outcomes as opposed to trying as an adult.
Right. And so today we have as many as 53,000 juveniles that are living in some sort of juvenile or criminal justice setting. And the way that the current juvenile system is set up, oftentimes these juveniles are tried as adults, even though their neurological capacity is not that of an adult. So cognitively, they don't necessarily understand the gravity of some of these crimes that they're committing quite like an adult would. So we're trying these children as adults. They're in juvenile justice systems. They often end up being transferred into the adult criminal justice system with little to no focus on rehabilitating them. And just like in the adult criminal justice system, the juvenile justice system also faces some very harsh racial and ethnic disparities. There may be unsafe living conditions, so you're going to see increased risk for experiencing sexual violence while incarcerated. There's going to be over-criminalization of juveniles, so oftentimes we're looking at juveniles that are locked up for low-level drug offenses, which also comes with some racial and ethnic health disparities there. And then overall, there are just harshly punitive conditions with the juvenile justice system, and especially with the transfer into the adult criminal justice system.
So now that we have gotten just kind of an overview of both ACEs and the current juvenile justice system, how are they intertwined and related to one another?
So as we kind of discussed earlier, we know that the experience of an ACE puts you at a higher likelihood of interacting with the criminal justice system, either as a child or later in life, which is compounded by experiencing more and more ACEs. So oftentimes we see that juveniles or adults that are incarcerated have experienced at least 4 ACEs. And so we really need to focus on addressing those ACEs preventatively so that these children and then adults later in life are not interacting in the criminal justice system. And that comes with so many benefits to society, such as cost and just rehabilitation in general.
Okay, and what are some examples of rehabilitation currently?
So currently in California, in LA specifically, there's the Back on Track initiative. And this was created by the California Senator Kamala Harris. And this initiative is really to identify those low-level offenders that are in prison in California, correct? LA?
Mm-hmm.
Just LA though, right now?
It's actually in LA and San Francisco.
Okay. So the whole goal of this is to rehabilitate those nonviolent prisoners that actually have a shot at, actually, I shouldn't say that, but the whole goal is to get them out in society again. So they're pouring resources such as education, resume building, other kind of educational initiatives, and just kind of reacclimating them to society before they go out into and rejoin society again. And the whole point of this is to really reacclimate them before they go, before they're done with their sentence, so that by the time they do fulfill their sentence, that they are equipped with the tools that they need to be successful and find work and really start their lives again.
Yeah, so when we're looking at the solution for addressing ACEs and reforming the juvenile justice system, it's really important to consider the work of Dr. Nadine Burke Harris. She's currently serving as the Surgeon General of the state of California, and she, along with Senator Harris, established the Center for Youth Wellness in California. And that center focuses on ACEs and the accumulation of stress known as toxic stress that really affects long-term health impacts of children. And so what we need to do is take this Back on Track model that serves as a rehabilitation measure and expand that nationally to serve as a model for integrating true reform into the juvenile justice system to get these kids connected with the mental health counseling, health promotion programs, things like that, that will address the experience of ACEs, make them more likely to become self-sustained, they can hold down a job, they're going to be less likely to recidivate later in life, and we're really going to break that familial cycle of incarceration. And that way, those that have experienced an ACE are not going to be interacting with the criminal justice system. They're going to be more likely, when they go on to have kids, to be able to raise those kids. Those kids will be less likely to interact with the justice system as well. So really, this is an investment not only in the youth of today, but also long-term in breaking these lifetime cycles and multi-generational cycles of incarceration that families experience.
The Back on Track initiative has proven to be actually an example for other states in, modeling their own re-entry programs. So it's a very comprehensive program in California, and it's proven to be very successful for them in not only reacclimating prisoners back to societal life, but also it's proven to be extremely advantageous when you're dealing with costs. The average daily cost for an inmate is $241 versus preventative tools such as this as $75 a day per individual. So obviously this is a significant cost savings, yes, but it's also investing in showing support for those that have maybe done wrong. It also will kind of encourage hope in them to, it shows them that we actually care about their well-being, and hopefully that should be reciprocated back.
So I know you mentioned this while you were talking right then, but do you think this Back on Track initiative will start spreading to other states in the country and become like just kind of a normalized way to deal with juveniles?
I do, and I say that because Minnesota and Connecticut, for two states for examples, they kind of have their own rehabilitation program set forth now that they've developed in recent years. So I really do think that there is potential moving forward that this can be, it can garner more momentum in the step in the right direction. How do you guys feel about this? Do you feel that our generation in particular kind of has more of an understanding, I would say, in previous, or?
I think so.
I think so as well. I think there's definitely a pretty nationwide movement and a bipartisan effort, quite frankly, in reforming the criminal justice system as a whole, not only just the juvenile justice system. So I definitely think that this has the potential to gain some ground and really serve as a reform measure.
Mm. And especially with mental health awareness becoming so popular now, and ACEs having to do with mental health, I think it's good, and I think it'll just start becoming more popular. But well, thank you all. That's today's episode. I'll tune in next week for our next topic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.